Welcome to the round table. I'm Jennifer Eller, and my co-host today is Mike Hill, and with us is Missy Norris.
Yay!
Hi, Missy.
Since we don't have sound effects yet.
Okay.
We're the real sound effects.
Woohoo!
Yeah. That's why these came in.
Oh, the clappers.
Yeah. Because we always ask our producer to give us sound effects. You know, on real podcasts, they have this.
Right.
They have this guy that sits back there and he like pushes these buttons.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So
Maybe someday, right? Yeah.
as we evolve.
Work in progress.
Yep.
Yeah, as we evolve.
Yep. So, so we want to get to know you a little bit more. So, do you read books? Do you watch TV? We already know you scroll Facebook a lot. So,
Yeah.
but
Did.
Yes, you did scroll
Yes.
Facebook. So, yeah.
Starting Sunday, that's just a break from that.
Is it like a break for a while?
That's my goal.
Okay, like do you just say like, okay, I'm gonna try a month? The reason I'm asking is like in setting goals, I'm thinking about this myself. It's like I don't want to be on it, but is it for a certain time?
Well, that's what I initially started, but it only gives you like an option of like 7 days at the most. So I just said, don't remind me. So I'm just gonna go with what I'm led. I just know I spend too much time.
Wait a second. There's an option on Facebook to say you can like disconnect from it.
Yeah, you don't have to delete it. You just deactivate it.
I've deleted it from my phone, where I'd have to be on my computer to get to, but I couldn't scroll on my phone.
Yeah.
So if I could go on my computer, I was, and I wanted to look at something that was fine, but on my phone I couldn't. So I just deleted the app.
Yeah.
But there's a
it's still-
deactivation thing
Yeah. In your settings.
Interesting.
And on the Facebook.
on the
Yeah.
Facebook.
On the sorry.
No, I just love it. Like that's like way back in the day.
I know, it's like
The
going to the
Facebook.
Walmart.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
No,
do you
so
read any books or?
I have read a few books. I really like Max Lucado. I have read random books. I read one. It was a Stephen Furtick book. I do a lot of watching sermons online. I used to get stuck in like the reality TV shows where you just sit and binge watch for hours and hours and hours. But after I've started this journey, I don't watch too much TV. If I do, it's a sermon.
Who's your favorite pastor?
Man. Well, the pastor I was introduced to first when I started my walk about 2.5 years ago was Stephen Furtick. So I like him a lot. Michael Todd with Transformation Church. Do some T.D. Jakes.
Oh wow.
Never heard of him.
And also watch his daughter.
I've never heard his daughter. T.D. Jakes. I mean, he can get into it.
He's powerful.
Yeah.
So basically, for the last couple years, I've kind of like just not shut out. I just kind of went away from like what you would call secular TV.
Like if you were gonna take a break, would you like from? Okay, I'm disciplined. I'm only gonna like watch sermons or do these things. If you're gonna like just let loose
And watch something.
Yeah. Well, like, do you have a genre or something that you would like? Like, are you a murder mystery person? Or are you?
I can't do any of that stuff. Like it creeps me out. Like
So not a scary movie person.
even before, if I would watch something, I would like start like panicking, get like sweats, and be like, okay, and I'm gonna have like horrible nightmares. Like it was just like I can't do it.
Do you go
I've
to
tried.
the other end? Are you like a Disney person then? Do you go watch, a Disney movie?
I do.
Okay.
I mean, and that's part of me and my daughter's thing, like Disney Plus, and I'll sit and watch. I used to, like, if I would, like, in the evenings just want something on, it's cheesy, but I would watch the old Parent Trap, No. Parent Trap? No?
I don't know if I've ever seen it.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. Okay.
Dan,
Okay.
I don't know what the Parent Trap is.
No.
Okay.
Okay. Well, anyway, just simple things that aren't, complex or, or like an old movie like Breakfast Club. I'd watch something like old
Okay,
stuff.
now that's old.
Well, I'm
Am I allowed
old.
to ask how old you are?
I'll be 47.
Okay.
In
Yeah, because
February.
I can remember Breakfast Club back in the day.
like shows like that.
Yeah.
Like 80s,
Yeah.
real old. Just stuff that's like not too complex, I guess. Before everything got weird.
For sure.
With movies.
Right.
Well, yeah. So other than that, I spend a lot of time reading the Bible.
Okay.
Like I just finished the book of Acts. I read it a year ago, but it was put on my heart to read it again. And then, so I just finished that book. And then I just started Matthew, which I've read them before, but I don't know why it was put on my heart to read Matthew again. I know it's weird because it kind of comes with the season.
I mean, is this a thing? Like I've heard you refer to this a couple of times. So like, do you feel led a lot to do
Yeah.
different things?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Because I think for some people that would be I think it'd be a struggle, right? Like I think a lot of people don't always feel led or God talking to them.
Yeah.
You know, so did that just evolve? Is that
it's
something
really,
that's new?
It's really started to evolve in the last, really strong in the last 6 months.
Okay. Why? Do you know why?
I truly think part of it is just beginning to have a more intimate relationship with Jesus. And just being more intentional in my prayer and more intentional and purposeful about just how I walk through my day.
Wow.
It's a very strong calling for me. I don't know how to explain it. The book of Acts came about. We were doing the Bible study at FCC Church on Thursday evening, so I go to that sometimes. And the book of Acts was brought up. And then
What's FCC stand for?
it's Faith Community.
Got it. Sorry.
I go there
it's
sometimes
perfect.
with a couple friends. They do it on Thursday evenings.
I just I don't know if I
Yeah,
have
because
heard of
I
FCC.
had started going a little bit when they were here, but then we started small groups here. I went to the one with Scott Little. I joined that one.
Yeah.
And then I went back after, and then went back to that one. Well, it came to me then, and then we were talking about it, Celebrate Recovery. Someone brought up the book of Acts, and it was the exact same area in Acts that I read like that morning when I just opened my Bible, because I'll do that sometimes. I just open my Bible and see what the Lord has for me.
Did you ever open it up once and read it and be like, what the world is that? Have you ever had that?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like,
Probably
maybe I
most
need
of the time.
No, I'm just saying
then
sometimes, like I've
sometimes
heard of people doing that. Like you just open it up and I'm like, I wonder if there's ever a time like you ended up in
when it,
something weird. and
something
you're
weird,
like,
and you shut that, and like, maybe that's not it.
Let me try again. Let me
Maybe I'll just try it again. No.
Yeah.
And then I was actually driving from my job because I was helping out at one of the women's homes in Bluffton. And I was driving from Fort Wayne to Bluffton, and on Highway 1 there was a gentleman standing on the corner over by the Arby's, and he had this like billboard thing up with a sign, and it had a scripture on it. I can't quote it, but it was the book of Acts.
That was your sign.
And then the church beside where I work, it's Wings of Deliverance. It's right beside Avenues Recovery, my place of occupation. I'd pulled up that week, and they changed the sign. Live as my offspring. It's Acts. I can't quote the actual scripture, but it was Acts. I'm like, okay, I hear you. I hear you. So that's kind of like, that's how it came about.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So typically, yeah, I read a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you have like another favorite book of the Bible or anything then?
I have not read a lot of the Bible at all. The Old Testament, I tried to do a Bible study on, and it was just so like, what am I reading? Like, I don't understand it. So, like James, I like James.
Yes. Very practical.
Yes, very easy. Like when I very first started reading again, because I read the Bible when I was younger, but I was like, I don't understand any of this. But then once I started my journey 2.5 years ago, I started in like James was one. Romans is another good one I like. Acts, of course, I read. And then the Gospels, of course.
Right.
And that's why I also share with my daughter, if you're going to start somewhere, start in the Gospels.
Good place to start.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So do you have like a favorite childhood memory or something you like to do as a kid?
I just remember growing up, every summer we'd go with my grandmother to the lake, me and my cousins and my sisters. We'd all go the same week up to Little Barbie.
Oh, really?
And stay for a week every summer with my grandma. And those were like the best times. So simple. Board games in the evening, sitting around the fire at the picnic table, swimming all day. going down and taking your Dove soap and your shampoo and your soup and bathing in the lake, you know. It wasn't because
that sounds really clean.
you know, no. Well, back then I think the water might have been a little bit better condition.
I don't know. Have you heard the story about that? So we rented a cottage on Big Barbie.
Well, how long ago?
This has been like
3-4 years ago.
I don't remember,
Probably.
but we were talking to the people that are up there, and they're like, "Well, you know, we did this, and the lake is now where all the sewers don't run into it. Like it used to be, all of that chain."
Yeah.
This is what they said. Not
no.
again somebody who lives up on Seacrest,
Yeah.
all those up there.
We grew up
but
on
it
those
used,
chains.
Yeah, it used to be that like all of the. I can't imagine
waste?
that's true. Yeah,
Waste?
like ended up out in the
I
lake.
can't believe that's true.
I don't
That's
know,
like-
because we
people-
grew
oh,
up like
golly
skiing and
geez.
tubing. I've never seen nothing, you know, or smelt anything.
It all stays
smelled
next to the
anything
edge.
weird.
It just stays next
No,
to the
but
edge.
no,
Oh,
but
golly.
no, but I mean, those were the times that I remember the most. You know, spending time with your cousins and family. Something we don't do too much now.
Why is that? Why? What was so different back then than today? Like, why don't we sit around and play board games? Why don't we have simpler times?
I think a lot of it's just the world we live in. It's the media. It's the phones. Everything's accessible right
Phone's
at your.
the devil.
No, it's just
Hey,
It is. I
Listen,
agree.
telling you.
I'm with you. I think that stupid thing is the biggest distraction ever.
It is. I'll tell my kids, okay, if we're sitting down and we're doing something, put your phone away because it's not TikTok time. Or
Well,
your
can you
friends.
remember a time in your life where you weren't available? I was thinking about that today. You know, you're constantly
Yes,
available to people now, and there is no boundaries. Like
not.
nobody has a boundary anymore, and
They'll call you at 9:00 at night or send
Right.
you emails and messages, and it's like this is like time for with family or sometimes bed.
yeah. Well, and that's the thing is, I got to the place. I read this book that was talking about digital minimalism, like the idea that it's actually affecting people's brains. Like
Yeah.
the problem of, even though your phone's not ringing or you're getting text messages, you feel tied to it all the time.
You
like you
do.
feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be available and I have to have it close to me.
Yeah.
Like I have to have it close to me.
Sleep
the
with
all
it right beside you in the bed. on
Right.
the
So they talked
nightstand.
about putting them on Do Not Disturb, but now everybody's figured out how to call through your Do Not Disturb. You just call twice and the stupid thing rings. And
Right.
thinking about just shutting the whole thing off. Like,
Yeah.
seriously, is somebody dying?
Right.
I mean, sometimes they do, but
Right. I'm just saying, like back then, we didn't have cell phones.
right.
You know, we didn't like even in high school. I remember. I mean, the biggest thing in high school for us was like you had a pager. You were cool if you had a pager. You know, that was
Really?
like the first thing when I was in school that came about. Like if for people to get a hold of you, that because we didn't have cell phones then.
Did you have a pager, Jennifer?
No.
I've never had a pager. You must have been important.
No.
I mean,
no.
yes, you were. Dan, did you have a pager?
No, I did not.
I mean,
Well,
you
I don't
must have been the
know.
most important person around.
I doubt
You're
it,
like
no.
a doctor.
No.
Yeah. You'd be in somewhere and you'd be like,
Yeah, and I'd stop at a payphone and call somebody back. That's
Yeah,
what
like
it
who
was.
paged you?
Yeah, friends with pagers.
Really?
I don't know.
Yeah, I have-
Yeah, it's weird.
A pager can text a pager?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, you call the number, or I can't remember how it worked.
I
It's
don't either.
It's like it would vibrate, and then the number would pop up. That would
oh,
be
and
the
then you'd
number.
have
You'd
to like
call
go call that number back.
Yeah.
Why didn't they call your house instead of paging you?
If you weren't there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Like,
like-
she's out. That's what I would say. She was out and
She's
about.
out living life.
Yeah. You were important out and about. People had to get a hold of you.
Oh, be quiet. No.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing that's different.
Did you grow up around here?
Right here in Huntington.
You did. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep. And, you know, we also made more time, like on the weekends, like we would do Sunday evenings, sometimes at our grandparents' house, you know, when it was the Disney would come on with the castle, like the Disney movie.
Okay.
In the
yeah.
evening would come on and show the castle.
Okay.
And then every week was a Disney movie, and we'd have popcorn with our cousins and our parents. I think it was just putting the effort in to spend time together.
Do you have any like around Christmas time memories of like things that you did? Like were you the Rudolph or the Frosty? Like, did you watch any of that?
Yeah, we did. Like always, it was Frosty the Snowman, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. But one thing that was a tradition that we always did was at our grandparents' house again was when you got the old, like the Sears and the JCPenney catalogs. And we would pass them around. That's how Grandma would know what we wanted for Christmas. Is we would get a circle 3 things.
Seriously,
All the grandkids, we would
yeah.
sit together and pass those catalogs
The
around.
catalogs.
Yes.
Sears and JCPenney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were the cool things. I just love that stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Or even like Saturday night, sometimes we go to Grandma's and spend with our aunt watching the old, like what do you call it? The wrestling in the, like in the, like the.
WWF wrestling?
Yes, we would do that on
Oh,
Saturdays.
Dick the Bruiser.
Yes, you know, yes.
And those the days, Dan?
Yes.
Back in the day, Dick
Yes.
the Bruiser.
We
Right?
would-
You could watch it on 55.
Yes, we
Along
would
with
do
Happy
that.
the Clown or whatever
Yeah.
his name was.
Happy the Hobo.
Happy
Yeah,
the
that's what
Hobo.
it was.
Yes,
yeah,
Happy the
those are the
Hobo.
things that back in
Those-
the day.
yes,
See,
those-
we're all old. Like,
We
we're
are
all
all
around.
That
the-
was, those were,
Yeah.
those
I
were.
keep asking Dan. He's a young guy.
Yeah,
How you
he's
been?
Oh, see, he should know. He should know. But those are the times that like really meant a lot that I remember. It wasn't about what we purchased or where we. It was about those memories of
family
being with
stuff.
family.
Did you have some of that when you were a kid? Like, did you remember like watching a movie or like what was your Christmas thing?
Oh, I mean, the same. I mean, you
Okay.
didn't have all the choices you have now. So, of course, Frosty came on, Rudolph. You know, you wanted to watch those.
Right.
And A Christmas
TV
Story
shows.
started Christmas Eve
No, I've
on
never
TN or
watched
T-
that.
TBS. On TBS,
What was
24
on 24 hours?
The Christmas Story.
I've
Red
never
Ryder
seen
BB
the-
gun. You'll
never
shoot
seen
your
the
eye
Christmas
out.
Story.
Oh, for the
In the light in the
love.
window. I know a little bit. The light in the
Oh my
window
God.
of the lady's leg,
Leg,
with
the
the lamp.
No,
You'll shoot your eye out.
no.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I
don't
did
know
watch
any-
Scrooge. Or isn't that the movie?
The original one?
I don't know. Isn't it Timmy Boy or something that walks around crippled?
Oh, Mickey
Yeah.
Mouse Christmas Christmas Carol.
That's what it's called?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it's called Scrooge.
Well, because that's probably the newer one, not the original
Oh, I
one.
don't know.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
I don't know where he
but
was. You missed out.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but those are the memories.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
So, you thinking back on your childhood, was faith any part of that, where you are today? Did you have any influences from that time in your life? Was your grandma, did she have faith, or any family?
My grandparents, I never remember going to church, but my mom would take us. Like, I was baptized at the church down here on State Street down by the jail. It's called the Hive now. It used to be,
Oh, yeah, East State
it
Street.
used to be First Brethren.
Oh.
And I went to
When
church
we got
there.
here, it's called East State Street, I think.
This
No,
was
it was
way
actually
back.
across the street was
Oh.
East State Street, and that building's not. It's kind of where the Boys and Girls Club is, I think.
Oh,
now
okay.
was where that was,
Yeah.
but I don't know what the church was prior to that. But
So it was First Brethren when we went there, and we did Sunday school. Then we went upstairs to church with our mom and dad. More mom than dad. Then I did youth group there. Did trips like Kings Island. Did fundraisers like bike-a-thons. Raised money to go on the trips. Even later in life, always went to church with my mom. Then, like, as I got engaged, and me and my fiance at the time would go to church.
So was that just so
It
I can
was
get a
just-
perspective, when you were growing up, where you are today? Like you just talked about this 6 months of, hey, my personal relationship was growing. Did you feel that when you were younger?
I didn't know what that was.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
didn't know what a relationship with Jesus was until the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, that's what I think. It's always interesting to talk through that because I think a lot of people went to church.
Yeah, I went to
were
church.
taken to church. But I think it's going to be interesting as, Jennifer navigates with you through your story because, that's a lot of people's story of like, hey, I went to church. I had a
Yeah.
fiance went to church, but the personal relationship piece
Yeah.
wasn't there. Was it an important part of you guys getting to know each other, your fiance at the time? Was faith a part of that, or was it just
No.
like, okay?
No, he grew up going to church too. He grew up Catholic. And I just grew up like what you would say is non-denominational Christian.
Yeah.
But it was never at like the center of our relationship. But I viewed things a whole lot different than I do now. It was like I said, I went to church and I knew wrong from right.
Yeah. So can you
And I
can you
just-
expand on that? Like, what do you think is one of the biggest differences of how you viewed faith then to how you view faith now?
How I view it, I mean, I knew that God existed. I would pray to him. Try to treat people the right way, because I would feel in my heart, I would feel like it wasn't right. There was things like, I know the Holy Spirit was probably communicating with me then. I just didn't know what it was, because you just get those feelings like, I probably should go there. Or I think that person needs this.
So did you give your life to Christ when you were a child then?
I was baptized I was 10 years old.
Okay.
But then I rededicated myself when I was in Bluffton for a year at iTown Church, because I attended that church for a whole year because I was here for a while, then went to Bluffton, then did iTown Church there, and then was rebaptized there.
So I mean, again, not that you can necessarily answer this, but I always think this is an interesting question. Based upon what you know today of a personal relationship with Christ, do you think you were saved back then?
No, I didn't know what it, I mean, I really,
again,
I feel
I'm
like I don't.
not from a condemning.
Yeah, I really don't know.
I just think it's so interesting. Like, you've seen this stark difference between, again, I call it religion.
Yeah.
Because it could go across the board. So people could say they go to church.
Right.
Across the board.
Across
I
the board.
I go to
church.
something that makes me want to be a better person. Right. You could do that and it not even be a church building.
Right.
But I religiously go to something that's going to make me better or do what somebody wants me to do. But you're saying like there's a difference, and I know that we're not going to be like it's a black and white, you were or weren't, but I was just curious what you thought.
I know that I got baptized when I was younger, knowing that's what I'm supposed to do, and I didn't want to go to hell, because I mean that's really kind of like what I remember as a child, that you need to give your life to God, and because if not, you don't want to go to hell. I just remember fearing so much when I was younger, like hell.
Yeah.
Like Satan in hell.
Right.
I remember as a young child, I was trying to read the Bible and for some reason, I ended up in Revelation, and I just shut it. And I'm like, I was terrified.
As a kid?
I was, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, because we always had Bibles as children. We had Precious Moments Bibles. So they were easy for us to read. But this fear was instilled in me. And I was like, I couldn't do it. But I'm saying for me, a difference for me between what is a relationship with Jesus and believing is God, I think it's a lot of what I've walked through. Like when he saves your life and there's no other reason why, like it's changed me forever. And I was in a place where I was able to be fostered on how to like nurture that relationship and discover what that was.
Yeah.
And when things happen in your life and miracles happen in your life and there's no explanation for them, but God,
right,
that changes your whole perspective.
Yeah.
And the way you see things in this world.
Yeah. Brings it to a whole different place.
It does.
And a whole different level.
Like it's like that he is real.
Yeah. Right. Right. So can you pick it up a little bit from the standpoint of, so you meet your fiance, right? And so can you kind of take us from there? Is like, did you guys just continue to go to church and things were good? And
we continued to go to church here and there for a while. And then, he worked a lot, so he wasn't available on the weekends, so I continued to go with my mom. But I wouldn't say we were on the same page with anything when it come to, well, I think he was just brought up Catholic and I wasn't.
Yeah.
So there was a difference right there from the beginning.
Right.
And even at then, in my walk in my faith, it's what happened in my life was the situation and the lifestyle I started living, and the way my heart hardened and started changing. I stepped away from even trying to put anything into God. At all.
Yeah, for sure.
And there was times where, I would still be coming to church here at Life. I would come because I know I needed something in my life, but I was searching for something I couldn't find. Something in here was missing.
Yeah. So again, you can take. I don't know what happened. Like I don't know your story at all.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, what led up to any of that. Like I don't know. Like those pieces where you're talking about. Like these were places where you're really searching. Like I don't know,
Yeah.
and maybe you can help our audience
Yeah.
kind of understand, like what happened during those periods of, like when you said you chose to live a different life, or like what was that?
There was a time, there was things that I went through as a child, younger in my life that affected me in ways I didn't realize that it did. I went through being the oldest of 3 daughters and watching my mom have a nervous breakdown, but at the age I was at, I didn't know what that was. I just know she got sick and had to go to the hospital, and she was gone for like a week or more. And I had to watch my dad, who had never really had to take care of us, 3 girls, cooking and cleaning and doing all that, because that was my mom just did all that, to watching him kind of panic. And us being so close with our mom, I mean, being the oldest, I always helped her cook and clean because we were always with her. And I found myself in this, like a state of almost fearing for her, that if she came home and things weren't a certain way, that she would get sick again because she was working too hard. Because she was working multiple jobs to try to help take care of us, plus take care of us. And it was like almost like a switch inside where I went into like this, almost like a survival mode, where I had to.
How old were you at this time? Like guess.
About 12.
Oh wow.
And to where I wanted to just make everything okay for my sisters too, because they were younger than me and I didn't want them to be afraid. So I stepped into that almost like a motherly role. And like that whole week she was gone, I was cleaning, ironing clothes at that age, like, because my mom ironed everything, even sheets and stuff. It was
Sherry's grandma used to iron curtains.
Yes.
Like what?
And I spent that time like doing all this and getting all the laundry caught up because I wanted her to come home and not worry. And from there, it ended up being there. Then it kind of just kept moving in that direction. We had to end up during the summer staying home because something happened to us at daycare, to me. So my mom had to rip us out of that daycare, and we couldn't find anyone. So I ended up staying home in the summer with my sisters and help all summer long. Back when summers were even longer than now.
Yeah.
And cooking meals for them and being responsible for them and having that trying to have control over everything that I could in my life, because I felt like if I didn't, something bad would happen to her again.
Right.
And just through all of that, I'd been through different things in my relationships where instead of dealing like stuff like that in my life and going through even an eating disorder right before my freshman year of high school, because, once I was teased in school, then it was like, well, I can control this too. So I can control what I eat.
Wow.
And it just kind of was a ripple effect. But never, because I feel like.
But you didn't see it as abnormal then.
No, I didn't.
Right.
I didn't see anything as abnormal. I thought,
this is what everybody does.
It's what
how everybody feels.
Yeah, it's just this is normal. And I mean, I grew up in a time where I feel like things weren't really talked about too much.
Yeah, so
I didn't know what a therapist was.
Yeah, so can I just interrupt you for just a second? So for all of the young ladies that are out there listening, what do they, when you're going through stuff like this, what do they need to do? Do they just need to find somebody to talk to, find somebody to share with? What be in community? What could help them so that it doesn't go further and spiral into?
I think it's just finding someone that you can confide in and talk to and being able to do that and feel like it's okay.
Okay.
And not feel like that. Because I was at a place where I just ended up believing what people said to me. I didn't tell my parents about it because I felt like I would get in trouble. It was weird. And so then I found myself, it was back when shows were on TV, watching shows would come on, like the after school specials about girls with eating disorders, things like that. Then it almost was in a way, it kind of glorified it to me. And it made me like, okay, if she can get that thin, then I can too.
Ugh.
It was, and I think that it's just opening up, because I remember at one time my mom was like to my dad, I could hear her. She's like, Jerry, I'm kind of worried about Missy. And he's like, oh, she's fine. So it was kind of also, I feel like too, it was a generation of you just kind of, at least in my house, you kind of just didn't speak of it.
I think that was
and you just kind of
back in the
didn't
day.
speak
I don't
of
think
it.
anybody talked. I don't ever remember.
I mean, we didn't talk about
No.
things as a family, like what we were hurting with and what we were struggling with. You kind of just, it's okay.
Yeah. No, I think we grew up in a generation of you don't talk about things.
Yes.
You just push through.
You just
keep
push through
going
it.
on. You keep dealing with it.
Yeah.
For a guy, it's pull up your bootstraps, keep working, do whatever you need to do. Like talking about it don't fix anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's over that time is where I started bearing so many things, because I never addressed any of it, because you just put it down there
Right.
and just walk on.
Right.
So how long did you have that eating disorder? From like how many years?
It
What was
followed
like?
me. I started like between my 8th grade and freshman year, all the way through like my early 20s.
Oh my God.
Just here and there, like something would happen in my life, like something even in my relationship with my fiance at the time, where I would get emotional and upset, and I would go to that again, because I could control that.
So
because
it kind of like come and go.
Yes,
Yes,
it would just it never totally,
Wow.
just because I never addressed it, and it would, anytime anything would emotionally happen to me, that's where I would go, because that I can control.
No.
And so what I try to tell my daughter now is, because she's a gymnast, she's on the high school freshman. She's a freshman on the gymnastics team. She's been on the competition team at the Powell for like 7 years.
Right.
And girls are still kind of can be that way. And I'm lucky that she's pretty confident in who she is, but because she's made comments to me about the way people talk at school to one another, and I'm like, just know that you're a beautiful person. If you ever feel like you need to talk about anything, I'm right here, because I've been right there where you're at.
Yeah.
And just know that it's safe, because the worst thing to do is hold all that inside.
Yeah. Press it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you work through that? Did somebody, like we said, counselors, therapists, that time,
Yeah.
that was kind of like a taboo thing. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't
we
think
just-
anybody really talked about you were.
No.
So did you have like a close friend or someone, or you just worked through it
I
yourself?
just worked through it on my own.
Wow.
Because
Good
it was
job.
to the point where at one time, one of his friends said, I was about like 110 pounds, and for me, that's
Wow.
nothing. And he's like, Missy, you need to start eating. And when you get so weak, it's hard to do things.
Right.
I knew that was becoming an issue. So because see, that also became an addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah. The eating disorder. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think I developed that addictive personality as being able to control things as a young child through that trauma with my mother, and that's where that addiction came in.
Right. So is that a part of so did you start with into other addiction?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So can you
Yep,
kind of
I'm
walk
good.
us through that?
Yep.
I mean, so did in your 20s, how did that?
So that was in my early 20s. I still battled with that. So then 21 comes around, you can drink.
Oh yeah.
Legal age to drink,
Right.
And-
Like anybody waits till they're 21.
I know. You had a few
I'm
of those.
just saying,
I mean,
come on.
I'm not lying. You had a few of those high school where you're going to go stay the night at somebody's
Yeah.
friend's house, and then there's just so happens to be alcohol.
Just happens to be beer in the fridge.
Yeah,
Like, how'd that ever happen?
Just happens to be a bottle of vodka in the fridge, and
Yeah.
there's beer too.
Right.
Let's just try it out.
Right.
So there was some of that occasional drinking.
Sure.
Just like that's normal.
Right.
That's just normal in society. But later on down the road, like in my marriage, my ex-husband worked many, many hours. He's a hard worker. So there was a lot of times when he wasn't home. He worked during the day. Then on the weekends, they would do roofs for people, always
Yeah.
doing side jobs, roofs
Right.
a lot of the time
Right.
during the summers. And it'd get to the point where I would get lonely, but I didn't want to be that type of person to be like, you need to spend time with me. I wanted to be that wife that it was, you always had home cooked meals and everything was always done. And, I didn't realize then, but I started resenting him for being by myself. So then when I'd get bored on the weekends, I would, let's go out. Let's go drink
Right.
with my friends. And that just gradually went into, I mean, fast forward that years down the road, it's still occasionally drinking, but then it comes up to where I'm drinking every weekend.
Oh, wow.
You know, and then it becomes almost a way of, instead of talking about problems and
you
issues
numb 'em.
in your marriage or in life, you just numb it away.
Yeah, right.
So then it began to, I'm just going to have a couple drinks tonight after work. And then that moved forward to where I was drinking every day.
Really?
Yeah.
So it was an alcohol addiction.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
15 years of drinking.
Wow.
15 years.
15 years.
That is so through that you're married,
Have children.
have children. So how, like, were you just a functioning?
Again,
I say this loosely,
What
a
you call
functioning
a functioning
alcoholic.
alcoholic, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there was the times that when you know, my children are about 2 years apart in age. Like when I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, she's the oldest. Okay, that's it. I'm done. You can't drink when you're pregnant.
Right.
That's not an option.
Right.
And in the beginning, I found it to be like I was angry because I couldn't. You know,
Yeah.
like you call the dry drunk. That's what people call it.
Right.
You know, that's what I've heard the term as. I didn't realize what it was then. And then by the end of the pregnancy, it was fine.
And so, and again, I don't know your ex-husband. So, I mean, did he care that you were drinking?
Yeah,
Or
he
did
did.
care.
Yeah, he
Okay. So
did.
he was like,
He did, and you know, and there for a long time, I think he just tolerated it because we were married, you know, and he
Okay.
knew that really wasn't who I was. Like deep
Okay.
down, that's not who I was. But fast forward that, you know, and he put up with that for many years, because he dealt with that, and I did that because I didn't want to deal with all the anger I had toward him,
right.
and it turned into anger. That resentment turned into anger, and that's what happens when we don't deal with issues.
Right.
Our heart changes.
Yeah. They just fester. And
It just
and
builds
I do
up.
think that that's interesting because it's not just anytime you don't deal with something, there is an
Anytime.
effect on your heart.
That's right.
Like they're just, you know, whether it's making it more calloused, whether it's
Yeah.
making it more angry, but
Yeah.
there is to think that you can just walk through life without dealing with issues and everything's going to be okay. Like, I think there's a brokenness that happens that you're even
Totally
unwilling
broken.
to admit.
Totally broken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so did the alcoholism destroy your marriage? Like,
It was part of it for
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah. We were together like 15 years. Little over 15 years.
Wow.
We dated 7 years before we were married. Yeah. Crazy.
That is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and again, like the being able to, and I think this is for a lot of people, being able to function through addiction. Like, I think sometimes people think of people who are addicted as like they can't function.
yeah.
They're just out of their mind. They're
Yeah.
always in jail. They're always
Yeah.
but
And I think that's where it's a stereotype. It's a label
it is
that comes with addiction that people have no idea, because addiction comes in many forms.
right,
It's just not substance.
right,
Like I said, I had an eating disorder.
right,
That was an addiction.
right. Some accepted addiction, some not accepted addictions.
Right, and that's just the way society is.
right.
But yeah, it just kept going, and then, you know, as soon as after my daughter, about maybe 6 months after my daughter was born, when I was done breastfeeding, of course, it was, you know, someone asked if you want to have a glass of wine. I'm like, I don't know, because you know, you really know you shouldn't do it.
Right.
But I'm like, oh, that's okay. One glass is okay.
Yeah, and
Well, that's all it took.
This is going to be a dumb question, but I want to make sure we ask this just for our audience that's listening. So, the people that are around you, so the people that are your friends, right? The people that are supposed to love you, like, are they the people that are like, hey, do you want to have a glass of wine? You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to get my mind wrapped around this idea.
Well, but you have to realize that sometimes those people that were asking, had drinking issues themselves.
Oh, okay.
So you know what I mean? One
Yeah.
enables the
No,
other.
for sure.
So one enables the other.
Right. Okay.
You know, I'm not going to say people in my life, you know, we didn't go out for dinner and drinks, but in the back of their minds, they knew that probably wasn't a good idea.
Right. Right.
But it just
Yeah, I'm
comes
just
to a point
thinking-
when do you stand up and be strong to your loved one and be like, no, we're not doing this.
Right. That's what I was trying to get to. Like, when in these situations is it right to be like, hey,
Yeah.
you have a problem?
Yeah.
You know, this, you know, like when somebody looked at you and said, you shouldn't weigh 110 pounds.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, you know, and I've been thinking about this since our last podcast too with Kale, like the courage his dad was dying, and his last words to his son was, I'm going to heaven, but you're not. I'm paraphrasing it.
Yeah.
And you need to do something about it. Like the courage. Can you think about that as the
Yeah.
courage of a father to look at his son and be like,
And say that right before. Yeah.
yeah. And,
Yeah.
and the same concept, somebody having the courage to say, you know what, you shouldn't weigh 110 pounds.
And then
Same
you shouldn't
concept.
be.
The courage is like, you probably shouldn't be drinking every night.
Right.
You
right.
know, but I just wonder sometimes if we don't have the courage.
I think a lot of people don't have the courage.
And do you think it's because we would worry about, like, what are you going to say or how are you going to respond?
I think
or,
it's worrying about the reaction. The response.
Yeah. So what got you to 15 years of alcoholism or drinking?
Yeah, 50, like toward the end of the last couple of years is when it got really, really bad.
Okay.
You know, I had lost my mom to stage 4 cancer. She got really sick. 7 weeks after, I lost my grandma, my dad's mom, to cancer, who I was also helping take care of when I was working in occupational therapy because we had her in our nursing home because she just got out of it's the hospital down south. She had to have her jawbone cut out, removed, and cancer scraped off of it and put back in. And she never recovered from it. Age and everything else too, you know. But 7 weeks after that, losing her, then about a year later, I lost my cousin, and that's when all of that happened in that like really sensitive 3-year span. Because then following a year after my grandpa died, and it was just like
Yeah.
loss after loss after loss.
Right.
And I didn't handle problem like anything emotional situational problems well because I'd never handled them before.
Right. Right. You
I
didn't
just-
have a coping mechanism.
I had no coping mechanism.
Right. So, and again, without this sounding weird, like you said you were drinking almost every night, and then you
And
said it
then-
got really bad.
Then it got really
Like,
bad.
Again, I'm just trying to get
It's-
the perspective of like, what's really bad mean?
It is to the point where I had lost my job and got laid off. So I was just sitting and collecting unemployment. I also went through a divorce in this time, too.
Yeah.
I had moved and been on my own for the first time in over 17 years. This was just 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And I found myself, haven't dealt with any of these
Yeah,
deaths,
Right.
then haven't dealt with this divorce. And I'm here with our children are split 1 week on, 1 week off. So I'm sitting here just throughout the day, like, what do I do with myself? Well, I'm just going to have a drink. So basically it spiraled into
Yeah.
where I got up and was drinking. I'll be like, well, if I wait till noon, I'll be good. To where it's 9 o'clock. I'm fast. I'm just going right through where I'm drinking from the time I get up till the time I go to bed. Like
Wow.
to the time I go to bed, then eventually where I have to drink through the night because my body was just dependent on it so heavily that I couldn't function anymore.
So what was the breaking point? Like, what got you to the place of like, I got to do something different? Like, did something specific happen?
Yeah. I had been, it was a week when my children were with their dad, and I had spent like the whole week doing nothing didn't leave my house unless I needed to get something to drink, or else it was brought to me, and drinking 24 hours around the clock.
So who brought it to you?
Well, one person
I'm
did.
like-
One person did. The rest of the time, I was managed to get there by myself,
Oh
and
my
I shouldn't
gosh.
have. I shouldn't have.
Oh, I
Wow.
can't imagine.
And it was to the point where I was. This is horrible to say, but like I was. It was just that time. By that time, it was just straight vodka. No water,
Wow.
no food,
Hmm.
and I was laying on my couch, and I was just so desperate, like in this, like I'm gonna die.
Hmm.
And I remember calling Andrea Diamond,
Hmm.
and I said, I need help. I can't do this anymore.
Hmm.
And she's like, I can't take you into the place where she works.
Hmm.
You've got to be 24 hours without drinking. I said, I don't even know what to do. And I was bawling hysterically. I don't remember some of the words, but she remembers the conversation, exactly where her and Jeff were at that time and everything.
Wow.
And so from there, my friend, Christy, who attends church here, one of my best friends, I guess had come out to my house because she felt like she needed to come check on me.
Hmm.
Because it's that isolation when no one's heard from you, you
Right.
know. And I remember she come to the door, someone knocked at the door, and she come up to the door, and I opened the door, and I looked at her, and I just slammed the door in her face. And she said a few choice words, you know, as she was leaving. I'm like, I'm not doing this. I don't want to see you.
Hmm.
And then in that same day, my sister she called someone to come check on me, and I wouldn't answer my door.
Hmm.
The police came a couple times. I wouldn't answer my door. She had a wellness check done for me because something in her
Right.
told her if I don't go check on her, she's going to die.
Wow.
That's God.
Yeah, for sure.
So I eventually opened the door for a friend who came to check on me, and within minutes, a gentleman came to my door, and he was saying, you really need to go to the hospital. And this time I was mad and I was angry because I'm like, I don't, and even though inside I knew that I was,
Yeah, you were desperate.
that
but
I was
didn't want any
desperate,
help.
but because
Right.
I was thinking in my, like I said, how am I going to get out of this? I don't even know how to come out of this because
Right.
it had come to where I was totally dependent
Right.
on it.
Right.
Like I couldn't do anything.
Right.
Like in that last week, I was drinking to throw up on myself, to drink some more, to barely walk to the bathroom, to drink some more, to throw up on myself. It was just a vicious cycle. And it was so sad. Like it, right. Like I think this is the first time I've been able to talk about it without crying.
Hmm.
And the cop came and he's like, well, I think let's take a breathalyzer. And he took it and it was extremely high. And then I didn't even know what the number, how deadly it was.
Right.
And he's like, I think I need to call the ambulance. And I said, no, I'm not going. I was mad. Well, then he said, if you don't go, you could die. So they called the ambulance. And it was to the point where he's like, when's the last time you ate? And I'm like, oh, I ate just a few days ago.
A few days.
I said I had some Burger King. And my sister picks up the receipt from the counter. She goes, Missy, this was 7 days ago.
Wow.
Oh my word.
So like my whole body was shutting down.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So then from that moment on, I mean, it's just like, did you have to go somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they walked me to the ambulance, to the EMS. I got in there, and they had to start an IV on me right there in the ambulance. I lived like 10 minutes from the hospital. So that's how bad, if you can say, how dehydrated I was.
Yeah, right.
And I knew that it was bad when I could, because I had to sign for consent for them to treat me. And I couldn't barely hold the pen to sign my name to even make a scribble because I was losing all function.
Right.
And it was not because I didn't know how to write my name.
Right.
It was because I was losing the ability to, my body was not working.
Right. Yeah, breaking down completely.
Shutting down. My
Yeah, so
body was failing.
Yeah, so they get you to the hospital, and then from the hospital, does like somebody's going to intervene? Was there an intervention? Said, hey, we're going to.
Really, no, because this is just how, when I get to the hospital, I was crying because I was so scared because, you know, it's hard to say because when I knew that I was going to die, Like it was the weirdest feeling, like a total sorrow and just separation. And the gentleman, the admitting ER doctor, was a recovering alcoholic.
Wow.
And that was, and I just broke down, and he was crying with me, and he took my hand, and I was just like, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. And he's took my hand and he said, can I pray with you? And I said, please.
Wow. It's amazing.
And I ended up in the hospital for 6 days. I couldn't walk for the first 5. I couldn't stand.
Unbelievable. So you're that bad.
Yeah, my kidneys and liver, everything was shutting down. I had nothing left.
Wow.
Like, I remember them talking about dialysis, like things that, like, they were like, you're sick, Melissa. You're sick. But it wasn't my first time in the hospital from alcohol.
Really? You'd been in there before? So after the 6 days and you get better, do they send you to a rehab?
Well, what happened was, day 6, I finally got out of bed and was able to walk to the bathroom, because before I was having to get lifted by 2 staff member onto a bedside commode so I could just go pee.
Right.
And they had to hold me up because I couldn't even sit up. Like they had to put me asleep medically, because when they say like that each detox gets worse with alcoholism, it's true, because I was having such bad hallucinations that I would ripped out my IV twice to crawl out over my bed to walk down the hall. Had no idea about it.
Wow.
So my sister had told me, I think this was her way of like tricking me, because I tried to come out of the hospital before and just do meetings on my own, go see a therapist, but like it lasted about 2 months and that was it. Then I would like, oh, I could have a drink today. So from there, she's like, Missy, we need to get something figured out. These applications are getting printed out for you. You're going to go here or you're going to go there, because the hospital said they will not treat you again. And now that I know she's lying, because the hospital can't refuse to treat you. You know, they can't refuse to treat you medically. That's a liability, you know.
Right.
But I knew that she was desperate. And so I filled out an application to go into a faith-based program. And I went, and day 6 I left the hospital. I drove to Andrea's house. I followed her to her place in Bluffton. And I went in there through the intake, and they're like, well, I'm doing the paperwork, and they're like, it's a 6 to 12 month program. I'm like, nope, not doing that. I'm not. And I was kind of rebellious with it, and I'm like crying. So I'm like, I can't leave my kid. Well, you got to leave something to get yourself better, really.
Right.
And I'm like, I'll give you 30 days. Well, a year later. And
So you did stay in it for the full year?
yeah.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah. And that's where I met Jesus. I met Jesus sitting on the floor in my room
Wow.
in prayer with Andrea and Chris Walker.
That's awesome.
And I had an encounter with the Lord that changed my life. Like I could fit like where I was curled up in a ball on the floor crying, so full of guilt and shame and like failure, and it curled up in a ball, and I just felt this warm like blanket across my back, wrapped around me like a baby, and the level and the comfort I felt and the love in that moment was nothing I'd ever experienced in my life.
Isn't that amazing?
And I was just bawling and bawling, and there he was,
Yeah.
like an actual encounter, and it just wrecked me.
Yeah.
I mean, that changed my life.
Right.
And I'm like, because I knew I wasn't supposed to come out of that hospital.
Yeah.
And I begged him in that bed that night, crying out to him, please don't let me die here. My children don't even know I'm here. I don't want this life anymore.
Right.
Please take it away.
Right.
And that's when I know, when I say there's a difference. And when you have a relationship with Jesus and you can see miracles.
Right.
That was a miracle. And when I can walk away from drinking for that many years with not even a desire to take a drink,
Yeah.
even a thought in my mind, after 15 years of drinking and trying this over and over and over before, like he healed me.
Right.
He
Right.
took it away.
Right.
Like just like that.
Yeah. Which again, I mean, not that I've ever been through that, but the idea that you can go that long and be
Yeah.
that bad and then
Yeah.
in a moment.
In a moment.
You know, that God, I mean, I think it just proves things that we forget. You know, we see sort of a God of the universe that, I mean, spoke all of this into existence. And we should expect more of those things.
We should.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I got so nervous because I had to get a follow-up, like within 60 days of labs for my kidneys and my liver. And I was just so full of panic. Like, I just thought the worst, like, it's not going to be better.
Right.
I'm going to have to end up getting treatment for I'm going to end up in kidney failure or stage 1 or something.
Right.
And sitting there talking to Andrea, and I'm like, I sit there and think, did God save me, bring me all this way just to let me die? That's where my mind was. And she was like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I went to the doctor, and I was there, and I got a phone call, and the doctor, it was the actual doctor, and he told me that all of my results were fine.
Yeah.
All my labs were
another miracle.
Nothing but a miracle. I mean, I fell to my knees in tears, because praise God, because they were just shutting down 2 months ago.
Right.
Your liver can rejuvenate itself if it's not too far gone, but your kidneys cannot.
Right.
And that's just, who else?
Yeah.
What else? There's no other reason besides it's God.
Yeah.
Because he has plans.
Right.
For everyone.
Right. Yeah, so let's talk about that part. So now you met Christ. So let's talk about what's different in your life now. What's God doing in your life now? What's changed for you?
What's changed for me is just being in a relationship with him. It's spending time with him daily. It's not like I used to go to church on Sunday and then live my life kind of like however I'd want during the week till I came to church on Sunday again. But it's being purposeful every day and wanting to give hope to other people.
Yeah.
To meet them where they're at, no judgment.
Right.
Loving them, walking right beside them. And now I've been working in recovery for 1.5 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I work at Avenues Recovery Center in Fort Wayne on Fairfield. It's a 100-bed, 30-day detox. And I get to pour into these people.
I can't imagine what you see in 100-bed detox place.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And, you see people, you see broken.
Yeah.
I see what I was.
Right. Right.
And if I and just sharing them little bits of what I've been through, it's amazing what it can do for someone.
Yeah.
It's like it's your own little ministry and you don't even realize it.
Right.
Because you're out there sharing Jesus and sharing miracles.
Yeah.
And giving others hope to know that, because once I found him and felt that spot in my heart that had been missing for so long that I was trying to fill it with everything else, and sharing that with someone else, that there's hope.
Yeah.
That you can overcome this.
Right.
This doesn't have to be it.
Right. Right.
But for that sharing with them that I had to surrender to something bigger than myself. Because we can't do it on our own.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's cool that given a second chance.
Yes, given a second chance.
The two things for me is that, like, you came from a place where
so dark.
Yeah, and that God, just rescues you. Yeah, from that place. Those things should just continually remind us about, like, we serve a living God that is here
right
to rescue you.
Right here,
and,
yes.
Yeah, anybody struggling through any type of issues in life, we have a God that will rescue from that pit, and that you're not wasting that opportunity, of a second chance, being able to give hope to people, and
I think about her friend, the people who came to her house that day.
Yeah.
If they wouldn't have even listened to the Holy Spirit or even if they weren't, whatever prompted them to go, if they wouldn't have done that, took that step, you wouldn't have been here,
and they said if I wouldn't have been there, I wouldn't have survived.
Yeah. So how many times should we take that step, and what could we help somebody with possibly that we don't do that, know? And so there's a testament for those people for actually, doing that, to see the outcome of their actions.
Yeah, because even with my sister, she's not to where, not on the same level I am as with God, but she even admits that something put that on her heart that day
Right.
for
Yeah.
to come
Yeah.
to have someone
Yeah.
come check on me.
Yeah.
And that's where
Yeah.
I've learned that when I feel I used to call it a nudge, but when I feel led to do something, I do it because you don't know what that other person needs.
Yeah.
Right.
I could be the nudge that they need to help them realize that God is real. They could have
Right.
woke up and said, if you're real, have someone come up to me today to do this. And it's just
Yes.
that simple.
Yeah, for sure.
And he works that just that simple.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
that miraculous.
I've heard story after story of that.
Yeah.
I asked for this and this happened.
Well,
you know,
yeah,
and-
it's just like yesterday. I know we're getting close, but yesterday, I went into one of the groups. My friend asked me to come in and share something with him. It was a devotional I brought in, and one of the gentlemen, I got done reading, and he looked over at me and he said, "That was for me." I said, "How do you mean?" He goes, "I prayed to God about that very thing last night." And I just gave him a high five. I'm like, "There you go, buddy. That's how he works."
Yep.
And and he was like in tears. I'm like, "That's how he works."
Yeah.
And it's not even, I was working as a tech, not a group facilitator, but I was asked to go in and just share something that I shared with one of the facilitators. I said, "Sure." And I could have just not went in.
Right.
But it's learning to once you're asked to do something or
Yeah.
you feel it, to do it, because you never know how much you can impact and influence someone else's life.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a great way to end it. I mean, that
Yeah.
perspective right there from both of you is that the one thing that we do forget is that, and not to dramatize anything, but not answering a nudge could mean a life.
Yes, for real.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes we think, oh, well, I don't know, and
Yeah, I don't know.
could it
yeah.
be, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, a nudge in this case
Yeah.
saved a life.
Saved a life.
You know,
That's what
and
it was.
listening to it, and not only saved a life, it's bringing life to not only you, but bringing life to other people
Yeah.
because of the obedience of one. So I think that
Yeah.
to me is just a great thing to, yeah.
That was just your message on Sunday. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, somebody had to say yes. You
Yes.
say yes,
Yeah.
and what does that? Just the domino effect that happens.
That's right.
You know,
So
and
true. It's
Yeah,
so
how-
powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, how
Yeah.
one yes can just change everything.
Everything,
That, and
for
that
sure.
just,
Yeah.
again, you're a testament to that today. And you saying yes now, and whose stories are going to be affected because you're willing to share your story. You have the
Yeah.
courage to talk through those things. And yeah, that's awesome. So, Jennifer, you
Yeah.
want to end
Yep.
us up?
Yep. So if you're not part of our podcast texting group, you can text the word podcast to 260-408-8383. If you want to be on the podcast, let us know. You have an idea of somebody. We'd love to hear that as well.
Yeah. So the clip of this will be going out. So if you don't know, so when the clip goes out on Facebook, there is a link that you can go watch it on YouTube. So that's one way to be able to get on, to be able to watch it, see this awesome scenery that we have here. If you've never watched it, you need to come on. You need to get at least a view, of what it looks like. If you want to listen, you can go to Apple, you can go to Spotify, you can go onto our app. That's another way for people to be able to listen to it. And again, the other part of it is anybody that, if you see Missy out there anywhere, whether it's in the community, at church or at a church, whatever it is, encourage her, say hi to her. Great story, great influence. We're just so thankful for all of that. And don't forget that if you're seeing it on Facebook, like or share or comment, because that gives us more of an opportunity to be able to get it out to more people, because we do believe that the courage of people coming on here and sharing their stories, that there's somebody out there.
Amen.
Whether it's one, whether it's 100, whatever that is, even if it just changes one person's life. Right. So we're just, thankful for you being on, and we'll continue to pray that your influence and the things that you're doing will keep, changing the lives of people. So, all right.
Yep.
Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.